Xavier. I actually wasn't supposed to be here tonight, so I wrote this thinking I wasn't going to be here. So So it is with deep regret that we can't be with you both today, unable to share in your very special day. Never far from our thoughts, you're always in our hearts, and we wish you all the best in this new exciting start. So thank you to the groom for asking me to pen a few special words about a very special man and his very special bird. It's an honour and a privilege, and hopefully at the end, once the rhyming couplets are finished, you'll still call me a friend. Now where to start this tale of mine, this tale of mystery and suspense, a tale about a man who could account for every cent. You see, before he was known as Pirov, long before he became the cat, he was simply known as Steve, our expert in accounting prac. Every house on Boulder Street had a spreadsheet for every bill broken down with fraud accountant skill. One day he borrowed Mango's car to drive from Paddington to Rocklea. The total cost of this round trip, $3.63. Number 40 Boulder Street, this was to be the scene of my very first meeting with Steve. He was wearing cross-colour jeans. Now these jeans were notoriously baggy, known to bring the homie from within. Steve's were bright blue in colour, a true fashionista's sin. Not one to be a spendthrift or to let a garment go to waste, those jeans were now in rotation, much to all the boys' distaste. Steve would team those jeans with a really tight white shirt, crank Impossible Princess and dance around like a skirt. For those who don't know, unfortunately because of Steve I do, Impossible Princess was Kylie Minogue's pop rock debut. Enough of Steve's fashion sense, onto his musical prowess, and a little tale that begins with our groom in some distress. The year was 1999, we'd all signed with the Tigers, training Tuesday, Thursday nights in his Kingswood Selwa Drivers. Pirov had called shotgun, Kent and I were in the back, on the radio was playing some 80s Aussie track. Something about cheap wine and a man with some growth, then more about the wine, then more about the growth. Please forgive my memory, for this was years ago, but Pirov, Kent and Sull were lyrically in the know. They sang that song with gusto, word for word and line by line, and when it came to the chorus, it was Pirov's time to shine. He closed his eyes, he reached down deep, he had our full attention. We just hit Marshall Road when, silence, the driver killed the station. What happened next and what was said are almost too harsh to mention. Our driver looked at Pirov and without thought or hesitation said, "You've got the worst voice I've ever heard. You're completely out of tune. Please, Pirov, don't sing again. Never will be too soon." Not one to normally hold back, Sully's known to speak his mind, but the general consensus was these words were far too unkind. As I mentioned before, these words had left our groom in distress. His dreams of singing with Kylie were now in tatters and a mess. But the thing I love about the cat is the way he handles rejection. So this is where this tale of mine takes on a new direction. With Sully's words still ringing hot and his Tom Jones under question, our hero found himself in Airlie Beach and in karaoke contention. He picked his song, he closed his eyes, he went to that place down deep. Without Sully there to kill his flow, the rewards were his to reap. I'm sure that in his mind he wore those jeans, coupled with tight shirt, and Kylie was standing in the crowd as Pirov hit pay dirt. First prize was his that night, my friends, with the Chili Peppers classic. By the way, his song of choice. He tells us he really was fantastic. And so our hero came back to town from his North Queensland getaway, karaoke conqueror of Airlie Beach. Those backpackers had been his prey. Whilst questions were to be asked about the standard of his foe, nobody can take that victory away or deny he put on a show. You see, I've seen the cat in action, seen this karaoke show at a little restaurant called Ben's, a place that we've all come to know. On this particular night, our groom opened with "By the Way." So happy with his performance, he returned with an M&M mainstay. Now they asked Pirov and the K-Man to try and keep Ben's family vibe intact, but before he hit the chorus, they found themselves under attack. I'm not sure whether it was the F word or the mention of stuff on lips, but thanks to Pirov and the K-Man, the MC called it quits. So karaoke was shut down and we were all asked to leave, all because this group of ours chose to sing M&M's without me. That is where I'll leave tales of musical prowess, and this is where this poem of mine may start to digress. Digress into tales of drunken antics, of wine shows and cigars, and a tale about a bottle taken from behind a bar. Our friendship spanned a lot of years, a lot of nights on the town, but there were two occasions in particular that I just needed to write down. The first was a wine show held out at Cleveland Way, at the Grandview Hotel, which overlooks Raby Bay. I'm sure it was Pirov's idea, but I was right there beside him when we stopped for a beer before an hour-long train ride. This was a long time ago, before we were wise to worldly ways. We sat there, legs tightly crossed, as minutes seemed to go for days. We disembarked from that train, two men on a mission. Luckily we found that place that relieves such conditions. Never again were the words two students muttered as they walked up the hill, complaining about a $4 fee rather than a hefty taxi bill. We entered that wine show, grabbed our info about the range, then made a joint decision that we'd finish with the Grange. We started with the Don, drank wines of all sorts. Somewhere amongst it all, we sampled a little grandfather port. We were well and truly full when the sun started to go down. The only thing in front of us was the hour trip to town. The cat had that hangdog look about him, standing at the bar looking out to sea, when suddenly the ex had an idea. At that moment, it was more an epiphany. A childhood friend of mine named Nick lived in a mansion in Raby Bay. A quick call explaining our predicament, and the cat and I were on our way. Nick picked us up with his father's mirk. This was much more to Pirov's style. That hangdog look was now long gone. In its place, the cat's Cheshire smile. We stopped it at the mansion so Nick could get all kitted up. Meanwhile, Steve and I had found the bar and Pirov couldn't get enough. Johnny was definitely walking in his jacket-coloured blue, and when Nick finally appeared, Pirov ordered the cognac and cigars too. Now, I'm not a massive cigar smoker, but credit where credit's due. Cognac and Cubans are the business, and Pirov thought so too. Because our big old cat from Caboolture, in the midst of a cigar-smoked hue, had missed our host's eagerness to hit the town, and therefore had missed our leaving cue. While we were all waiting in the car, Pirov was still inside, sipping on yet another cognac and making sure another Cuban had been tried. It was the beginning of the end for our cognac-swilling groom. A day that started so full of promise would ultimately end in doom and gloom. The Trans was the place, and we'd made it to the front of the line before the bouncer said to Pirov, "You look like you've had a good time." "I have, good sir," the cat instantly replies before sidestepping the bouncer and taking off inside. The bouncer caught him quickly, re-emerging with Pirov by the sleeve, whispering something in his ear before telling us all to leave. That is where Pirov left us and ended our day of wine, cognac and cigars. But it's not the end of my tale about the above-mentioned bar. You see, the Trans was the spot where we'd all go to meet, have a few quiet ales before finding our dancing feet. On this particular night, a night that started early afternoon, the K-Man and I were present, as well as the handsome groom. The Trans had gotten busy, it was impossible to get a drink. The line was 4 deep at the bar, and Pirov was pushed to the brink. The brink of doing something foolish. You see, we'd been there for a while, given the Trans the best of our custom, all the while drinking with a smile. Now, it had been 40 minutes and Pirov had left for the bar. The K-Man and I left our table and spotted Pirov off afar. He had that look about him, that look of a man pushed too far. Then suddenly he did it. He reached across the bar. Grabbing the first thing that came to hand, Pirov was up and out the door. A 1 litre bottle of Southern Comfort. We couldn't believe what we saw. The K-Man and I took chase, but Pirov was off like a colt. Kent may be a Safa pal, but on this day, Pirov was the bolt. All the way along Upper Roma Street, then up around the bend, left onto Caxton Street and the homeward bound descent. I've never seen a man run so fast. Kent and I were well and truly spent, but Pirov kept on running like a Kenyan in a distance track event. Down past Lane Park, up the Paddo, turning right onto Great George. Pirov kept those legs a-pumping like a racehorse at a forge. Finally, the big man hit number 21, and only then did he stop. He'd managed to get that bottle home, and he hadn't spilled a drop. Out of breath with heart racing, the big man hit the floor, and this is where Kent and I finally came bursting through the door. We looked at him and shook our heads. There wasn't much to say. Southern comfort was not our drink. Not then, and certainly not today. But Pirog made us have a nip and relive the thrill of the chase. I still maintain the cat's never run so fast or been more off his face. Alas, this is where this poem ends. There is one thing left to say. Congratulations to you both, and we send all our love your way.
When the rain is blowing in your face and